Now, you want to become better at coding. You've taken all the tutorials, but you feel lost. In this video, we will discuss 5 app ideas that you can build in order to improve both your skills and your portfolio of projects in order to get your dream job. Hello world, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Igor. I'm a software engineer based in Portugal, and on this channel we do coding related stuff like tutorials, challenges, and other topics like this one. Now, in my previous video, we talked about 5 tips that you could follow in order to stay motivated while learning a new skill, like coding. You can find the video up here if you're interested. The very first key point was practice what you've learned, as this is the single best way to be able to retain all the new information that you've learned, to be able to then easily apply it as you move along to more advanced concepts. We even ended the video with a twist to an old saying, and then it became practice makes fluent. Now, you may even agree with all that we just said, but you still raise a valid question, and that question is, how do I get ideas on what to build with the skills that I've just learned? So with that in mind, today we are going to introduce 5 different app ideas to challenge you and to hone in your newly gained skills. We'll be going from an easy level of difficulty to a higher level in that order, so feel free to skip some of them if you're already comfortable with some of the more basic concepts. Full disclaimer that these app ideas were adapted from a great online list that was put together by Florin Pop on GitHub. And there you can find a long list of app ideas bundled by the level of knowledge or by the interest of the developer. On each individual app, you will find a description of the project, applicable constraints for development, and user stories to guide you through your development. Now, this is an incredible resource, and I'll leave a link in the description below if you're interested in knowing more about it. And I strongly recommend that you complete as many of them as you can, as this is going to help you increase your skills by a long margin. Now, I have selected 5 specific projects on this repository that I felt were the best to improve your skills by providing both a good balance of being both challenging and with common life applications. So let's take a look of which of the projects I've chosen. So in number 1, we have a simple and good introduction to the manipulation of a reactive state of an app with a border radius previewer. Now, as you may know, there's a CSS property, which is the border radius, that rounds the corners of an element, and it has multiple values that can be changed. So the idea here is to make a preview of how the shape would look while you were live changing the values of the border radius. You have 3 user stories here to guide you on the development of this application. Also, bonus feature of instead of being able to change the 4 default values of the border radius, 1 for each corner, you should be able to change all the 8 possible values that the property allows you to do. You have also useful links to how to deal with borders in CSS, and also 3 example projects that apply this same concept. So taking a look at the examples of this project, you have the simplest form that you can make, which is having 4 inputs that change with your input and generates the necessary code to implement in an HTML page. And then there are 2 others that go up to messing with the 8 possible values of the property, like this one. So feel free to mess around with this. Next up, we have a slightly more difficult challenge, but still within the beginner tier. And this is the countdown timer. This challenge will introduce you to some basic browser APIs, so this is a good place to learn some new skills. There's a description of the project in itself. There is a couple constraints on this one that will say that you shouldn't rely on any external package, in this case Moment.js, which is a commonly known package for time and data management. And it also constrains you on the use of code generators. So you're gonna have to put your hands at work on this one. So this one has a couple more user stories than the previous challenge, because in here you have tasks for showing warnings to the user, for example. You have tasks for the click of the buttons and also the way that the counter should work. You also have some bonus features if you want to implement them to make your counter go up the next level. The useful links and resources to the browser APIs I was talking about, and specific in this case, you're going to use the set interval and the clear interval. That's how you can say the browser to execute a specific code at specific interval of time. And there's also a couple of example projects on how this has been done. So on the examples of the countdown timer, you have 2 of them, and the second one is built with React, and it's also built by Florin Pop himself, and it looks like this, so you can do something similar to this. The last project in the beginner tier will be able to test your ability to implement external APIs to your project, which means that you're gonna be getting information from outside of your app. This is the well-known weather app that most people do to practice their skills, but try to make yours stand out from the rest of the others. Make it unique. So here you have the description of the project. They recommend using AccuWeather, which is a free weather API. There are only 2 stories, so it's a bit simpler to make because most of the bulk of the work will be on the API integration. Also some bonus features you can make, useful links for it. We're going to be using a lot of external resources to be able to make this work, and an example you can see right here would be this one. If I search for my city, you can see that currently it's 13 degrees Celsius, and I can confirm. Now going on to Tier 2, the intermediate level. This project is extremely valuable because it will solidify most of the previous knowledge of the other projects that you just made, but it will also serve you to solidify a very important concept of programming, which are regular expressions. So this one is going to be Regular Expression Helper. You can see here that the first sentence of the project description is that regular expressions should be a valuable part of any developer's toolbox. This is true since regular expressions play a huge role on development overall. You have a couple of user stories, you're gonna have buttons to click, you're gonna have an input to be able to enter the regular expression. Also a couple features like enabling the flags of regular expressions. You can look more about that in the resources down here. And a couple of example projects are projects that I actually use on a daily basis on my at work. And it's, for example, this one. You can have here the regular expression set, and then it's gonna match in the text that you've included below to test. So this is a more difficult project probably than before, but it will teach you some valuable concepts. Now the last project, and is the only one in the advanced tier, is to build a real-time chat application. This is a great project because it will involve many new concepts like the notion of WebSockets and real-time databases if you go that way. But it's also one of the most well-documented apps that you can find on the web. So if you actually get stuck in something, even start or somewhere in the middle of the development of the project, you can always just Google Realtime Chat App, and a lot of articles and projects done by other people are going to show up, so you can try and solve your problems with that. If you go to the description of this chat application, you can see here what you're supposed to achieve, which is multiple users can be interacting with each other by sending messages. There is a couple user stories, there are inputs to enter the messages to be sent, there are a button to send the messages, and the other users should see the messages on their window. You have a lot of bonus features. A cool one to implement would be to separate by channels. Instead of having a single room, you could have multiple rooms, and then people could choose which room to belong to. Now, regarding the useful links, like I said, you can use Socket.io, which is an external dependency for managing WebSockets. And then there's an article and 2 videos on how you could build a real-time application with WebSockets. Then, as always, there are 2 example projects. Let's open the first one. I'm going to put in your username and login. Okay, I'm going to be chatting with myself, so let me fire up a new browser window. So now I have Igor and Silveria, which are both me, on the same room. So I'm going to send hello with only one L. And we also receive the message in the other browser. So this is going to be a big one, but you're going to learn a lot by doing this specific challenge. Okay, so there you have it. These were the 5 projects that I would recommend for you to start practicing your skills of what you've learned and improving yourself to eventually land your dream job. There are many more on that GitHub list, and I strongly recommend you to practice by doing as many as you can whenever you have the time. Remember that the best method to improve is by consistently applying the skills that you've just recently acquired. Feel free to share your newly created apps below so that we can check them out, and also feel free to tag me directly on Twitter so I can see what you've been up to. I will see you later, and until then, happy coding.